On a chilly Halloween evening, the Johnson family gathered in their old station wagon, excited to visit their grandmother's secluded cottage nestled deep in the woods. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting long, sinister shadows across the winding road that led to her house. It had been years since they had visited, and the anticipation mixed with the eerie Halloween ambience sent shivers down their spines. Grandmother Agnes lived in an ancient ivy-covered cottage that seemed untouched by time. She was known for her peculiar habits and a penchant for the occult, but the family had always chalked it up to eccentricity. However, as they approached her home, an unsettling sensation filled the air, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The cottage's windows were adorned with flickering candlelight, casting an eerie glow throughout the surrounding woods. When they stepped out of the car, the autumn wind whispered secrets that they couldn't quite decipher. Pumpkins with sinister grins lined the path leading to the front door, and an eerie fog swirled around them. As they entered, a chill enveloped them. Grandmother Agnes greeted them with a cryptic smile, her eyes deep-set and penetrating. She led them into the dimly lit living room, where ancient tapestries adorned the walls, and shelves were filled with strange objects and dusty books. The family settled into a circle, trying to dispel the unease that hung in the air. Grandmother Agnes began to recount a chilling family tale, one that had been passed down for generations. She spoke of a malevolent spirit that resided in the nearby woods, a spirit known as the Harvest Hag. According to the legend, the Harvest Hag sought to claim the souls of those who wandered into her domain on Halloween night. As the tale unfolded, the room grew colder, and the family exchanged uneasy glances. Just then, the wind outside howled fiercely, and the candles flickered violently. The atmosphere thickened with an unnatural tension. Grandmother Agnes abruptly stopped speaking and looked toward the window with fear in her eyes. She mumbled something incoherent and quickly extinguished the candles, plunging the room into complete darkness. Panic gripped the family as they fumbled for their flashlights and huddled together. Outside, the family could hear eerie whispers, branches scratching against the window panes, and strange ghostly figures flitting through the trees. Shadows danced on the walls, and the room seemed to pulse with malevolence. With trembling voices, they called out to Grandmother Agnes, but she remained silent. The room became a cacophony of unsettling noises, and a bone-chilling presence closed in on them. The family realized that they were trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Frantic and terrified, they clung to one another, searching for an escape from the supernatural force that encircled them. The Harvest Hag's dark power seemed to intensify with each passing moment. The Johnson family's Halloween visit to their grandmother's cottage had taken an ominous turn, and they now found themselves facing the malevolent spirit of the Harvest Hag, trapped in a nightmarish Halloween tale of their own. Whether they would escape with their lives or become part of the legend remained uncertain, as the darkness of the night continued to close in around them. Deep in the heart of a small town, nestled within a remote forest, stood the eerie and mysterious Whispering Pines. Legend had it that individuals who ventured into the depths of these woods disappeared under strange circumstances, never to be seen again. The townsfolk spoke of whispered voices that echoed through the trees, luring unsuspecting souls deeper into the forest. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures darting amongst the foliage, while others swore they could hear sorrowful cries carried by the wind. The mystery surrounding Whispering Pines cast a dark cloud over the town, leaving its residents in constant fear. Among the lost souls was Sarah, a young woman with an adventurous spirit and a penchant for exploration. One beautiful summer's day, she decided to unravel the secrets of Whispering Pines once and for all. Armed with a map she discovered in the town's ancient library, she set off on her perilous journey. As Sarah ventured deeper into the forest, strange things began to happen. The sunlight filtered through the thick canopy above, casting eerie shadows that danced upon the forest floor. The air grew thick with an otherworldly presence, sending shivers down her spine. Yet, undeterred, she pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity. Days turned into nights, but there was no sign of Sarah. The townsfolk grew restless, whispering fearfully amongst themselves. They organized search parties, scouring the forest tirelessly, hoping to find any trace of the intrepid young woman. But their efforts yielded no results, and Sarah seemed to have vanished without a trace. With each passing day, more individuals were inexplicably drawn to the allure of Whispering Pines. Some were thrill-seekers seeking to conquer their fears, while others were desperate to solve the mystery surrounding the forest. Yet, one by one, they succumbed to the same fate as Sarah, disappearing into the depths of the woods. The townsfolk grew desperate, their once vibrant community now paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Whispers of a curse began to circulate, spreading like wildfire throughout the town. People locked their doors, their windows barricaded shut, for fear of being lured into the clutches of whispering pines. As the years passed, the town became a mere shadow of its former self. Whispering Pines had claimed the lives of countless individuals, casting a perpetual darkness over the community. Whispering Pines remains shrouded in mystery, its secrets hidden deep within the embrace of the forest. And while many have tried to unravel its enigmatic presence, none have succeeded. The lost souls of Whispering Pines serve as a haunting reminder of the darkness that might be lurking beneath the surface, drawing unsuspecting souls into its grasp with an irresistible allure, never to return again. Many years had passed since Sarah ventured into the depths of Whispering Pines. The once vibrant community was now an infamous ghost town, and the forest stood as a reminder of the horrors that lay within. Yet, a young boy who had grown up hearing the tales of the lost souls was determined to uncover the secret of Whispering Pines. Armed with courage and a sense of purpose, the boy ventured into the forest, ready to face whatever danger might lay ahead. The wind carried the sound of mournful cries, but he was unafraid, knowing that he had to uncover the truth and free the lost souls. As he pressed deeper into the forest, the shadowy figures that had frightened so many before him began to appear. Yet, the boy stood resolute, refusing to falter in his quest. And then, he found himself standing before an ancient tree, its roots extending deep into the earth. It was then that he noticed a faint light emanating from within the tree. With trembling hands, he reached out and touched the trunk, and the light burst forth in a brilliant display. To his amazement, the lost souls appeared before him, their faces glowing with happiness and satisfaction. Confused, the boy asked the souls, "Is there a way I can save you, or are you stuck here forever?" Sarah, who looked very youthful and even more beautiful than the day she disappeared, replied, "We are not stuck here, my friend. We made the choice to stay in this world, and now it's your turn to choose. You can either stay here with us in this incredible world, or you could go back to your world and leave all the memories of this place here." Jack said, "If you would allow me, I would like to spend some time here while I consider your kind proposal." Jack was mesmerized by the beauty of this place. The air was infused with a sweet fragrance, a delicate mixture of wildflowers and fresh dew. The sky above was a brilliant canvas, adorned with hues of pink, orange, and purple, as if a painter had expertly crafted each stroke. Jack's eyes were drawn to a meandering river, its crystal-clear waters cascading over smooth rocks, creating a soothing symphony. Though seemingly untouched by human hands, this enchanted place held a captivating charm. Towering trees embraced the landscape, their branches swaying gracefully in the gentle breeze. Lush green foliage formed a vibrant canopy, filtering the golden sunlight and casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. As Jack ventured further, he discovered a magical grove adorned with flowers of all shapes and colors. The petals seemed to shimmer and sparkle, as if sprinkled with stardust. Butterflies flitted gracefully from one blossom to another, their delicate wings carrying whispers of joy and enchantment. The soft melody of birdsong filled the air, their tunes harmonizing with the gentle rustling of leaves. The majestic spray of the river caught the sunlight, creating a mesmerizing rainbow that arched across the sky. The cascading water danced and twirled, weaving a hypnotic spell that seemed to transcend time itself. Jack stood in awe, feeling as though he had been transported to a realm where dreams became reality. In this mystical world, Jack felt a sense of peace and serenity wash over him. He reveled in the beauty that surrounded him, his heart bursting with pure, unadulterated joy. It was as if the very essence of romance had manifested itself in this hidden paradise, capturing his imagination and stirring his soul. During his stay in this incredible world, Jack developed a strong bond with Sarah. They became best friends and would spend a lot of time together and exploring this world together. He would listen to her sweet voice telling him many interesting stories all day long and about her past life, and he shared his own silly stories with her, making her laugh. He wanted to confess his feelings for Sarah, but over time he realized that Sarah is a free soul, and that it was the end of his part in her story. With a heavy heart, Jack knew that his time in this magical world was fleeting. Reluctantly, he bid farewell to everyone but Sarah and went back to his world through a waterfall that would remove all his memories of the place where he spent the most wonderful time of his life. He woke up in the forest when a young girl called for him and said, "Al, don't think you should be wandering near the forest. "Follow me, I'll take you back to the town." He followed her. Once they reached the town, he said, "By the way, I am Jack." "And you?" She said, "I am Sarah." Then she pointed straight to the town, saying, "Look at the town, it's so loud." Jack looked straight towards the town, and when he looked back her way, she was gone. He called for her, but it was like as if she vanished without a trace. He finally reunited with his family. They asked him about the forest, but he could not recall anything. As night fell, he sat in the moonlight with his journal. "I fell in love with my only friend, but couldn't confess, so it had to end. Different worlds, we couldn't be one. So I kept it inside and let it be gone. Everyone thinks I forgot about her, but my heart will always remember her. No matter where life may take me, she'll always have a special place in me. Love can be a sweet, cruel thing. Leaves us with a heart that still stings. But the memories we make will always last. And the love we once had will always be in the past."
Emma stared out of her window, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. A chill ran down her spine as she remembered her ex-best friend Sarah. They had once been inseparable, but something had changed between them. It started innocently enough. Sarah would appear wherever Emma went, always wearing that eerie smile on her face. Emma tried to ignore it at first, thinking it was just a coincidence. But the more she ignored it, the more it escalated. One evening, as Emma was walking home from work, she noticed a figure trailing behind her. She quickened her pace, but the footsteps echoed in her ears, growing louder and closer. Panic set in as she turned into a deserted alley, hoping to lose her pursuer. But there, waiting for her, was Sarah. "You can't escape from me, Emma," Sarah whispered, her voice dripping with malice. Emma's heart raced as she realized the truth. Sarah had become a psycho stalker, consumed by jealousy and obsession. The realization sent shivers down her spine. Haunted by fear, Emma confided in her friend Mark. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, but agreed to help her gather evidence against Sarah. Together, they installed security cameras and kept a close eye on their surroundings. As the days passed by, Emma's paranoia grew. Each shadow seemed to harbor Sarah's presence, lurking and waiting to strike. The once bright world had turned into a dark, twisted nightmare. But as they delved deeper into their investigation, they discovered something unsettling. The evidence they collected pointed towards Emma herself. Footage showed her entering her own apartment complex late at night, whispering to herself like a madwoman. Emma was shattered, her entire reality crumbling around her. She had become the very thing she feared the most. The villain in her own story. As the pieces fell into place, she realized that Sarah had never been stalking her. It was all a figment of her own imagination, a manifestation of her own guilt and regret for betraying their friendship. In a tragic twist of fate, Emma had pushed Sarah away, creating a phantom that haunted her every step. She felt a profound sense of loss as she realized that it had been her own actions that had destroyed their once unbreakable bond. Haunted by guilt and grief, Emma's sanity slowly slipped away. The darkness consumed her, leaving her a hollow shell of her former self. The truth became her ultimate torment as she descended into madness. And so, the girl who had been stalked by her psycho ex-best friend became the villain in her own tragic tale. As the shadows enveloped her, she was lost to the darkness forever. Mark rang Sarah's doorbell the next night. Sarah opened the door and invited him in. They had dinner together in silence. After dinner, Mark spoke. "Well, I have to admit, your plan was fantastic." Sarah smirked and said, "Couldn't have done it without you, Marcus." Brian was a high school student who wanted to buy a new video game. He saw an ad for a babysitting job on a social media app. It said, "Need a babysitter for Saturday night. One kid. Age 6. $15 per hour." Brian thought it sounded like a good deal, so he texted the number and got a reply from Mr. Jones. He said he lived in a big house on the outskirts of town and he needed someone to watch his son, Timmy, while he went to a business meeting. He said he would pick Ryan up at his house at 6 p.m. and drive him to his place. Brian agreed and packed his backpack with some snacks and books. He waited for Mr. Jones to pick him up at his doorstep. He saw a black car pull up and honk its horn. He got in and saw a man wearing a suit and sunglasses. He introduced himself as Mr. Jones and drove off. Brian felt a bit nervous as they drove away from the city and into the countryside. He tried to make some small talk with Mr. Jones, but he didn't seem very friendly. He just nodded or grunted in response. They arrived at a large and isolated house surrounded by trees. Mr. Jones parked the car and got out. He opened the trunk and took out a large suitcase. He told Ryan to follow him inside. Ryan followed him and saw a little boy sitting on the couch in the living room. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, and he looked scared. He was holding a teddy bear in his arms. Mr. Jones introduced Ryan to Timmy and told him that he was his babysitter for the night. He said he would be back by midnight and gave him his cell phone number. He also said that there was food in the kitchen and he could use anything in the house. Ryan thanked him and watched him leave with his suitcase. He locked the door behind him and turned on the TV in the living room. He decided to watch a comedy show to lighten the mood. Timmy joined him on the couch and they started to get along. Ryan checked on him every once in a while and he seemed okay. They ate some popcorn, played some cards, and had fun. Around 9 p.m., Ryan heard a loud bang from the basement. Ryan's heart raced as he heard the loud bang coming from the basement. He glanced at Timmy, who looked equally alarmed. Trying not to show his fear, Ryan assured Timmy that it was probably just something falling, and that he would go check it out. Leaving Timmy in the living room, Ryan slowly made his way down to the basement, clutching a flashlight he found on a nearby shelf. The basement was dimly lit and the air felt heavy with tension. As he descended the creaky stairs, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. With each step, the sense of unease grew. Ryan tried to dismiss his thoughts, attributing the noise to an old house settling. But as he reached the bottom of the stairs, he froze. There, in the dim light, he saw a chilling sight, a shadowy figure standing in the corner. Panicking, Ryan's mind raced with the possibility of danger. He knew he had to act fast to protect Timmy. Summoning his courage, he called out, "Who's there?" No response. The figure remained motionless, like a haunting specter. Determined not to let fear paralyze him, Ryan cautiously approached the figure. As he got closer, his flashlight revealed the face of a man, wild-eyed. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest, realizing that he had stumbled upon a dangerous intruder. Without a second thought, Ryan turned and sprinted back up the stairs, racing to the living room where Timmy was still innocently playing. He quickly grabbed his phone and dialed 911, frantically explaining the situation to the operator. As he waited for the police to arrive, Ryan took Timmy to his room and locked all the doors and windows, keeping Timmy close. Every noise made him jump, fearing the intruder might return. But he knew he had to stay strong for Timmy's sake. Finally, the sound of sirens filled the night and the police arrived at the house. Ryan led them to the basement, where they apprehended the intruder, who turned out to be a dangerous criminal on the run. In the aftermath of the terrifying ordeal, Mr. Jones returned to find the police at his doorstep. He was shocked to learn that Ryan had taken quick action to protect Timmy and himself. As Ryan was about to go home, Timmy gave him a big hug and slid a note in his pocket. When Ryan got home, he opened Timmy's note. In poor and rushed handwriting, he saw the word help written on the paper.
The night was dark and stormy, but the lights of the carnival shone brightly in the distance. Jake and his friends had been waiting for weeks to visit the carnival, ever since they saw the posters announcing its arrival. They had heard rumors that it was unlike any other carnival they had ever seen, with exotic animals, thrilling rides, and mysterious performers. They arrived at the entrance, where a tall man in a red coat and a top hat greeted them with a wide smile. "Welcome, welcome to the Cursed Carnival, the most amazing show on Earth. Step right in and enjoy the wonders and horrors that await you." Jake and his friends exchanged excited glances and handed over their tickets. They entered the carnival grounds, which were filled with colorful tents, booths, and attractions. They could hear music, laughter, and screams coming from different directions. "Where should we go first?" Jake asked his friends. "How about the haunted house?" Amy suggested. "I heard it's really scary." "Sure, why not?" Jake agreed. "Let's go." They followed the signs to the haunted house, which was a large black tent with a sign that read, "Enter if you dare." They joined the line of people waiting to get in, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervousness. They reached the front of the line and entered the tent. Inside, it was dark and cold. They could hear eerie sounds and see flashes of light. They walked through a narrow corridor, where they encountered various props and animatronics that jumped out at them, making them scream and laugh. They reached a room that looked like a graveyard, with tombstones, skeletons, and coffins. They saw a sign that said, "Choose your fate." There were 3 doors in front of them, each with a different symbol. "Which one should we pick?" Jake asked his friends. "I don't know. They all look creepy," Amy said. "Let's just pick one at random," Ben said. He reached for the door with the skull symbol and opened it. They followed him into the next room, which was pitch black. They could hear a voice whispering in their ears. "Welcome! There is no escape from here." The lights came on. They saw that they were surrounded by clowns who were laughing maniacally. They realized that it was not part of the show. It was real. They tried to run, but it was too late. Only Amy managed to dodge the clowns and reach the door they came from. She ran back to the graveyard room and tried to open another door. She hoped it would lead her to safety. She opened the door with the snake symbol and entered the next room. She saw that it was filled with snakes of all sizes and colors. She screamed again. She ran to the other side of the room, where she saw another door. She opened it and found herself in another room. This one had spiders crawling all over the walls, ceiling, and floor. She ran to another door and opened it. She hoped this would be the last one. She was wrong. She entered a room that had nothing but mirrors. She saw her own reflection everywhere she looked. She also saw the reflections of her dead friends, who were staring at her with accusing eyes. She heard their voices in her head. "Why did you leave us?" She felt a surge of guilt and fear. She broke down and cried. She didn't notice that one of the mirrors was actually a window. She didn't see the clown behind it. He smiled wickedly.
In the shadow of a fading sunset, nestled among ancient gnarled trees, lay a small, forgotten town by the name of Ravenswood. With its cobblestone streets, dimly lit gas lamps, and a past steeped in legends, it was a place that time seemed to have left behind. The townsfolk whispered stories of secrets long buried and mysteries left unsolved, but the most enduring legend of all centered around the reclusive confectioner, Alaric Whittaker. Alaric, a master of the confectionery arts, had once been a beloved member of Ravenswood's tight-knit community. His small shop, Whittaker's Sweets, had been a haven for those with a sweet tooth, where the scent of caramelized sugar and the warmth of his smile greeted all who entered. He crafted exquisite candies, each a masterpiece of flavor and artistry. Yet, beneath the facade of sugary delight, a darkness dwelled within Alaric's heart. He harbored grudges against those he believed had wronged him, jealous competitors, meddling neighbors, and an unrequited love that had soured into bitter resentment. His once kind demeanor gave way to brooding isolation, and he withdrew from the world, becoming a recluse in his own shop. Rumors swirled about Alaric's obsession with him, a book of forbidden knowledge. Some whispered that he had traded his humanity for arcane abilities, concocting candies that could manipulate minds and spirits. One fateful night, the townsfolk discovered Alaric's lifeless body in his shop, surrounded by shattered glass and candy wrappers. His death remained shrouded in mystery, with no apparent cause and no signs of foul play. The town grieved the loss of the once beloved confectioner, but a chill lingered in the air, a sense that the darkness within Ravenswood had not yet abated. Years passed, and Ravenswood's secrets remained buried until, one autumn evening, a ghastly fog rolled into town, heralding Alaric Whittaker's return from the grave. His ghostly form, clad in tattered confectioner's attire, wandered the cobblestone streets, his eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. He had returned with a sinister purpose, to exact revenge on those who had wronged him in life. Alaric's weapon of choice was as twisted as his vendetta. With a spectral flourish, he conjured candies infused with dark magic. These were no ordinary sweets, they were cursed confections that, when consumed, transformed the townspeople into living nightmares, manifestations of their deepest fears and darkest desires. As the cursed candies began to circulate, panic swept through Ravenswood. The townspeople found themselves tormented by grotesque apparitions, haunted by their own subconscious demons. Families were torn apart, and friendships shattered as trust dissolved in a whirlwind of paranoia and despair. In the midst of this chaos, a trio of unlikely heroes emerged. A disillusioned ex-detective named Samuel, a historian with a penchant for the occult named Margaret, and a reformed thief named Jack, all haunted by their own pasts, joined forces to unravel the mystery of Alaric's return and put an end to the candy-fueled nightmare. Together, they delved into the town's dark history, uncovering long-forgotten secrets. With each revelation, they grew closer to understanding the source of his vengeful power. As the trio pursued their quest, they encountered the twisted manifestations of the townsfolk's fears, facing their own demons along the way. Samuel confronted the specter of his partner. Margaret battled a malevolent spirit from her past, and Jack grappled with the shadow of his former criminal life. With bravery forged from their shared determination, they discovered that Alaric's phylactery, an enchanted confection hidden deep beneath his shop, held the key to his power and his revenge. To break the curse, they would need to confront Alaric's ghost, destroy the phylactery, and put his restless spirit to rest once and for all. On Halloween night, when the moon hung low in the sky, Samuel, Margaret, and Jack descended into the crypt. They faced off against Alaric's malevolent ghost, who unleashed his candy minions in a desperate bid to protect his phylactery. The battle was fierce, the candy monsters morphing and shifting, but the trio's resolve remained unbroken. With a final, desperate incantation, Margaret shattered the phylactery, dispelling Alaric's power and breaking the curse that had plagued Ravenswood. As the confectioner's ghost dissipated into the ether, the cursed candies dissolved, and the townsfolk awoke from their nightmarish transformations, their memories hazy and their fears slowly fading. In the aftermath, Ravenswood began to heal. The townspeople came together, rebuilding trust and community bonds that had been fractured. Samuel, Margaret, and Jack, forever bound by their shared ordeal, found solace in the knowledge that they had saved their town from the clutches of a vengeful confectioner and his cursed candies. As the years passed, Alaric Whitaker's tale became a haunting legend in Ravenswood, a reminder of the darkness that could take root in even the most seemingly ordinary places, and the resilience of those who dared to confront it. The town's cobblestone streets, once marred by the echoes of terror, once again resounded with laughter and the warmth of shared stories, as Ravenswood emerged from the shadows of its own past, forever changed but stronger for it.
In a quiet street in a seemingly ordinary neighborhood, Emily and her husband, David, found the perfect house. It was a charming three-story building, and they were thrilled to start their lives there. However, their excitement waned when they met their neighbor in Brooke's house. Mr. Peterson was a tall, gaunt man with sunken eyes that seemed to penetrate one's soul. His unnerving smile sent shivers down their spines. Emily brushed off her unease, thinking she was being paranoid, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Mr. Peterson. As weeks turned into months, Emily noticed peculiar behaviors from Mr. Peterson. He seemed to be always watching them, his eyes following their every move. He would stand in the shadows near his door, seemingly waiting for them to leave or return home. Emily's discomfort escalated when she discovered that Mr. Peterson owned no furniture, except for a dusty rocking chair in the corner of his dimly lit living room. One day, as Emily returned home from work, she found an envelope slipped under her door. It contained a handwritten letter from an anonymous sender. The words were chilling, warning her to be cautious of their neighbor, Mr. Peterson. The letter spoke of past residents who had mysteriously disappeared and hinted at sinister secrets hidden behind his cold facade. Emily couldn't shake the fear that gnawed at her. She shared her concerns with David, who dismissed them as mere superstitions. But Emily couldn't ignore the strange occurrences any longer. Late at night, she heard eerie whispers outside their door, and sometimes, when she glanced through the peephole, she saw Mr. Peterson's shadowy figure lingering in the hallway. Determined to unravel the mystery, Emily began researching the history of Brooke's house and her enigmatic neighbor. She uncovered unsettling records of previous residents who had vanished without a trace. Rumors circulated of Mr. Peterson's involvement in occult practices, and dark legends surrounded his name. Emily's fear intensified, and she realized they were living next to a true nightmare. One night, Emily couldn't resist her curiosity any longer. She tiptoed outside her house and peered through the keyhole of Mr. Peterson's door. To her horror, she saw a dimly lit room adorned with strange symbols and flickering candles. In the center, Mr. Peterson stood over an old book, muttering incomprehensible incantations. Emily's heart raced as she hurried back to her house. She knew she had to warn David, but she feared he wouldn't believe her. As she recounted her midnight encounter, David's skepticism faded, replaced by a growing sense of dread. They realized they were entangled in Mr. Peterson's malevolent web of secrets, and escaping unscathed seemed impossible. Determined to protect themselves, Emily and David decided to confront Mr. Peterson. Armed with the anonymous letter, they confronted him in the hallway. His sinister smile widened, confirming their worst fears. He taunted them, revealing glimpses of his dark power and malevolence. Emily and David knew they had to leave before they became his next victims. In a desperate bid to break free from Mr. Peterson's grasp, Emily sought help from a local historian with knowledge of the occult. Together, they devised a plan to counter Mr. Peterson's sinister energies. Armed with ancient symbols and talismans, they prepared for a showdown. Under the cover of darkness, Emily and the historian confronted Mr. Peterson in his lair. A fierce battle of wills ensued, with energies clashing and dark forces struggling for dominance. The room trembled, and shadows writhed around them. In a final act of desperation, Emily used the ancient symbols to banish Mr. Peterson's malevolent presence from the house. With the curse broken, Mr. Peterson's sinister hold on Brooks' house shattered. The neighborhood returned to its peaceful existence, and the haunting specter of its former neighbor faded into the annals of history. Emily and David finally found solace, free from the fear that had plagued them. Though Mr. Peterson was gone, Emily and David knew that the scars of that eerie encounter would linger forever. Their creepy neighbor had taught them the true meaning of fear, and they would forever be cautious of the secrets that lurked behind seemingly ordinary facades. Brooks' house remained a place of cautionary tales, a chilling reminder of the sinister forces that could lie hidden behind any door.
It was a foggy, moonless night when John found himself stranded on a desolate stretch of highway in the middle of nowhere. His car had broken down, and he was miles away from the nearest town. The chilly wind sent shivers down his spine as he clutched his jacket tighter, hoping for a miracle. As he stood there, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a young woman, her face hidden by a tattered scarf. She waved her arms, signaling for help. Relieved to have found a fellow traveler, John eagerly invited her into his car. She muttered a soft, "Thank you," and sat in the back seat. The woman was silent throughout the journey, only occasionally giving John directions. The atmosphere grew more eerie with each passing minute, and an unsettling feeling crept over him. The dense fog seemed to swallow the road ahead, adding to the feeling of isolation. When they reached the outskirts of town, the woman suddenly spoke up, asking John to drop her off near an old abandoned house. Hesitant but not wanting to be rude, John obliged. As he stopped the car, she vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of her footsteps. Shaken but determined to reach his destination, John continued driving. However, as he passed the same abandoned house again, he noticed the woman standing by the roadside, her hand outstretched, asking for a ride. Confused, he drove on, convinced that it was a trick of his mind. But the strange occurrences did not end there. The vanishing hitchhiker continued to appear at different points along the highway. Each time John picked her up, hoping to break the cycle and find an explanation for her eerie appearances. As the night wore on, John's anxiety reached a boiling point. He became haunted by the woman's ghostly presence, her hollow eyes staring into his soul. He decided to confront her, demanding an explanation for the sinister game she was playing. In a chilling whisper, she finally spoke, revealing a tragic tale of a hitchhiker who had died years ago on this very road. Her spirit had been cursed to wander, forever seeking a ride to her long-lost home. John's heart pounded in terror as he realized that he had unknowingly become a part of her haunted quest. With trembling hands, he dropped her off one last time, vowing never to return to this cursed highway again. As he sped away, he saw her vanish into thin air, leaving him forever haunted by the night he encountered the vanishing hitchhiker.
In the heart of the city, a new apartment complex named Whispering Pines had recently opened its doors to eager residents. Among the tenants was Sarah, a young woman seeking a fresh start in her life. She felt drawn to the allure of apartment 13B, situated on the top floor. The realtor warned her about strange rumors surrounding the apartment, but Sarah brushed them off as mere superstitions. On her first night in 13B, Sarah noticed peculiar occurrences. Whispers echoed in the hallways, doors mysteriously closed, and faint shadowy figures flitted at the corner of her vision. Unease settled in, But Sarah convinced herself that it was her imagination playing tricks on her. As days turned into weeks, the inexplicable incidents escalated. Objects moved on their own, strange symbols appeared on the walls, and chilling laughter resonated through the rooms. Sarah's friends and family began to worry about her well-being, urging her to move out. However, she was determined to prove that there was a logical explanation behind the eerie happenings. One night, Sarah heard a voice beckoning her from behind a sealed door in the apartment. Driven by curiosity and fear, she dared to open it, revealing an ancient-looking key nestled in a dusty box. The key bore an inscription in an unknown language that sent shivers down her spine. Driven by her discovery, Sarah delved into the apartment's history. Local records revealed that apartment 13B had once belonged to a reclusive artist named Lydia, whose paintings were renowned for their disturbing beauty. However, her tragic demise had remained a mystery, leaving behind a dark legacy. Sarah learned that Lydia had dabbled in the occult, seeking inspiration from the unknown. The symbols found in the apartment were linked to an ancient ritual believed to open a portal to a world beyond our own. Sarah's skepticism waned as she began to piece together the connection between the strange occurrences and Lydia's ill-fated fascination with the supernatural. As Sarah continued her investigation, she grew convinced that Lydia's spirit lingered in apartment 13B. She sought the help of a local historian, who warned her that Lydia's art had always been a reflection of her tormented soul. With each stroke of her brush, she captured fragments of her despair, infusing her paintings with a malevolent presence. The historian advised Sarah to tread carefully, as meddling with the supernatural could have dire consequences. Yet, Sarah was determined to unlock the secrets behind Lydia's art and find a way to break the curse that had trapped her spirit. As Sarah delved deeper into the mysteries of apartment 13B, Lydia's malevolent spirit retaliated. The apartment seemed to come alive with an eerie energy. Sarah's sleep was plagued by haunting nightmares, and she felt an ever-present gaze upon her, even in the daytime. Despite her fear, Sarah pushed forward, determined to confront the malevolent presence that had taken hold of the apartment. Armed with the ancient key, she embarked on a ritual to communicate with Lydia's spirit and understand the source of her torment. During the ritual, Sarah entered a trance-like state, transported into a realm of darkness and despair. There, she encountered Lydia's tormented soul, bound by the curse of her own creation. Sarah's empathy stirred a connection with Lydia, unlocking the truth behind her tragic tale. Lydia's obsession with the occult had led her to perform the ritual to seek artistic inspiration, but it had inadvertently opened a portal to a malevolent realm. The spirits that emerged cursed her, damning her soul to eternal suffering. In her anguish, Lydia sought solace in her paintings, hoping that someone would decipher the symbols and free her from her torment. Touched by Lydia's sorrow, Sarah vowed to break the curse and release her from her ethereal prison. Armed with her determination, Sarah deciphered the symbols and found a way to close the portal Lydia had inadvertently opened. As she performed the counter-ritual, the apartment trembled and an otherworldly force enveloped her. The energy surged, engulfing the apartment in a blinding light. Lydia's spirit appeared before Sarah one last time, her haunting gaze filled with gratitude. The curse was broken, and apartment 13B fell silent. The malevolent presence dissipated, leaving only memories of the horrors Sarah had endured. From that day on, Sarah's life took a new turn. She moved out of Whispering Pines, leaving behind apartment 13B and its haunted past. Whispering Pines stood vacant once more, yet the legend of apartment 13B lingered, passed down through whispered tales. The darkness within its walls remained a mystery to most, but for Sarah, it became a chapter in her life she would never forget, a haunting journey that had taught her the true power of redemption and the thin line between the supernatural and the human spirit. Once nestled deep within the woods, Hollowbrook Manor was a decaying mansion with a chilling history. Locals avoided it like the plague, believing it was cursed by the spirits of its long-deceased inhabitants. But for a group of adventurous teenagers seeking a thrill, the ominous manor was the perfect setting for a night they would never forget. The five friends, Sarah, Mark, Lily, Alex, and Ben, had heard the eerie legend surrounding Hollowbrook Manor and decided to explore it on a moonless night. Armed with flashlights and nerves of steel, they approached the mansion. The wind whispered haunting melodies through the trees, adding to their growing sense of unease. As they stepped inside the dilapidated manor, a heavy silence enveloped them. Cobwebs hung like ghostly veils, and the air was thick with an ancient musty odor. The walls seemed to hold secrets, and the darkness felt almost alive. But their excitement masked their trepidation, and they pressed on. Sarah led the way, her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the decaying walls. They ventured deeper into the mansion, exploring its twisted corridors. The echoes of their footsteps created an unsettling symphony of sound. Suddenly, a chilling breeze rustled through the air, extinguishing their flashlights one by one. A darkness so thick it seemed palpable engulfed them. Panic began to grip the friends as they fumbled for their flashlights, but none would turn on. The darkness seemed to swallow them whole, and each step they took felt like they were descending into an abyss of despair. Whispers filled the air, soft and sinister. Shadows danced on the walls, and Sarah felt a chilling touch on her shoulder. "Did you feel that?" she gasped, her voice trembling. Mark's eyes widened, fear etched on his face. "We need to leave. Now," he urged, his voice quivering. Yet, as they tried to find their way back, the mansion seemed to change its layout, leading them in circles. Panic consumed them as the eerie whispers grew louder, seeming to taunt and torment their very souls. Amidst the darkness, a faint glow emanated from a distant room. Drawn to it, they found an old dusty mirror. Reflecting their terrified faces, the mirror seemed to reveal more than just their physical appearance, it revealed their deepest fears and insecurities. Lily's eyes widened as she saw a distorted version of herself in the mirror, surrounded by eerie, skeletal figures. Alex saw himself drowning in an endless sea of darkness. Ben saw the reflection of a sinister, malevolent presence lurking behind him. The mirror showed them visions that chilled them to their core, amplifying their terror. Desperate to escape the mansion's grasp, they stumbled upon an old library. There, tattered books filled the shelves, their leather covers engraved with ancient symbols. Mark found a journal that recounted the mansion's cursed history, a tale of dark rituals, unspeakable horrors, and tragic deaths that condemned the place to eternal unrest. As they read the haunting accounts, the mansion seemed to come alive. The walls groaned, the floor shook, and spectral figures materialized around them. Terrified, they dropped the journal and ran, but each step seemed to drag them deeper into the mansion's malevolent embrace. Finally, they found themselves in a forgotten room. As if summoned by their presence, a ghostly figure materialized, a vengeful spirit seeking to punish any intruders. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she summoned her courage and confronted the apparition. "Please, we mean no harm. Let us go, and we'll never return," she pleaded. But the spirit only glared with malevolence, and the room filled with a bone-chilling cold. The friends held hands, forming a circle of unity against the darkness that threatened to consume them. In a desperate attempt, Sarah started praying for protection from the malevolent forces within the manor. Miraculously, a faint light began to glow, pushing back the darkness. The apparition let out a blood-curdling scream, fading into nothingness. The friends felt a surge of relief and followed the light's guidance as it led them out of the mansion. As they emerged into the moonlit night, they vowed never to speak of their horrifying ordeal. Hollowbrook Manor remained forever abandoned, a testament to the malevolent spirits that haunted its halls. The 5 friends had escaped with their lives, but they would carry the echoes of that night's horror forever. From that night on, Hollowbrook Manor was left undisturbed, a cursed relic of the past that no one dared to enter again.
Lila loved to visit her grandma's house. She always found something new and exciting to explore. But her favorite thing was the old mirror in the attic. It was a huge oval-shaped mirror with a golden frame and intricate carvings. Lila liked to imagine that it was a portal to another world. A world where everything was reversed. One day when she was alone in the attic, she decided to try something. She took a marker and wrote Lila on her palm. Then she held it up to the mirror and saw Lil. She smiled and thought, "That's my name in the mirror world." She wondered what else would be different in the mirror world. She looked around the attic and saw a dusty trunk, a rocking horse, a pile of books, and a stuffed bear. She thought, maybe in the mirror world the trunk is full of treasures, the horse can talk, the books are magical, and the bear is alive. She felt a sudden urge to find out. She walked closer to the mirror and touched it with her hand. To her surprise, it felt cold and smooth like glass. She pushed harder and felt her hand go through. She gasped and pulled it back. She looked at her hand and saw that it was still normal. She thought, maybe it only works if I go through completely. She took a deep breath and stepped into the mirror. She felt a strange sensation like falling through water. She closed her eyes and when she opened them again she was in the attic. But everything was different. The trunk was open and filled with jewels and coins. The horse was neighing and rocking by itself. The books were glowing and floating in the air. And the bear was sitting on a chair wearing a hat and glasses. Lila couldn't believe her eyes. She had entered the mirror world. She walked around and explored the amazing things. She tried on some of the jewels from the trunk. She rode on the horse and listened to its stories. She read some of the books. And she talked to the bear who was very wise and funny. She had so much fun that she lost track of time. She didn't notice that the sun was setting and the sky was getting dark. She suddenly remembered that she had to go back to her grandma's house. She said goodbye to the horse, the books and the bear. She ran to the mirror and tried to go through. But nothing happened. She pushed harder and harder but it felt like solid metal. She panicked and asked the bear why can't she go through. The bear took one look at her palm and said, "You forgot to reverse your name, Lila. Every time you enter a mirror world you are supposed to reverse your name else it becomes your reality." She realized that she had made a terrible mistake. Now she was trapped. She screamed for help but no one heard her. She cried and cried but no one came. She leaves the attic and goes downstairs. She looks around the house and sees that everything is reversed. The furniture, the paintings, the clocks, everything. She wonders if her grandma is in the mirror world too. She calls out her name but there is no answer. She feels lonely and scared. She decides to look for a mirror in the bathroom. She opens the door and sees a small round mirror above the sink. She runs to it and holds up her palm. She sees a Lil. She smiles and thinks this is it, this is my way out. She steps into the mirror and hopes for the best. Lila enters another mirror world where everything is different again. She finds herself in a forest surrounded by trees and flowers. She hears birds singing and animals rustling. She thinks, wow, this is beautiful. Maybe this is the mirror world of nature. She walks around and admires the scenery. She sees a stream and decides to drink some water. She bends down and sees her reflection in the water. She sees Lila. She realizes that she has to reverse her name again. She takes out her marker and writes Alil on her palm. She holds it up to the water and sees Lila. She thinks, okay, this is confusing but I guess it makes sense. The water is like a mirror too. She steps into the water and hopes for the best. She goes to another mirror world where everything is different again. She finds herself in a city surrounded by skyscrapers and cars. She hears horns honking and people shouting. She thinks, wow, this is crazy. Maybe this is the mirror world of technology. She walks around and tries to avoid the traffic. She sees a billboard and decides to look at it. She looks up and sees her reflection in the glass. She sees a Lil. She realizes that she has to reverse her name again. She takes out her marker and writes Lila on her palm. She holds it up to the glass and sees a Lil. She thinks, okay. This is getting annoying. But I guess I have to keep trying. She steps into the glass and hopes for the best. She goes to another mirror world where everything is different again. She finds herself in a desert surrounded by sand and rocks. She hears wind blowing and snakes hissing. She thinks, wow, this is awful. Maybe this is the mirror world of emptiness. She walks around and tries to find some shade. She sees a cave and decides to enter it. She sees a pool of water and decides to look at it. She sees her reflection in the water. She sees Lila. She realizes that she has to reverse her name again. She takes out her marker and writes Alil on her palm. She holds it up to the water and sees Lila. She thinks, okay, this is hopeless. But I guess I have no choice. She steps into the water and hopes for the best. She finds herself in the bathroom of her grandma's house. She is overjoyed and hugs her grandma who is surprised and confused. She tells her everything that happened and they laugh and cry together. She is glad to be back and vows to never enter the mirror world again. She looks at her palm and sees a Lil. She thinks maybe I should erase this. Just in case. She takes a tissue and wipes off the marker. She sees Lila. She smiles and thinks, that's my name in the normal world.
In the heart of a bustling city, hidden away from prying eyes, lay a secret that defied time itself, the Library of Eternity. The library existed beyond the constraints of reality, its ancient shelves holding books that wrote and rewrote history, and where words had the power to breathe life into long-forgotten characters. Lucas, a humble human, had stumbled upon this mystical place by pure chance. His love for books had led him through a concealed door into the Library of Eternity, a place unknown to most. As he wandered through the labyrinthine corridors, he encountered Seraphina, an ethereal being who had dwelled within the library for centuries. Seraphina was an angel, bound to the library's enchantments since time immemorial. She had witnessed countless stories unfold, each one a fragment of her existence. Her fascination with Lucas was instantaneous, for he was the first human in centuries to find his way to her world. As Lucas and Seraphina met, their shared passion for literature ignited a connection that transcended time itself. They spent their days immersed in books, reading stories of love and adventure, mysteries and tragedies. They laughed at the wit of Shakespeare's characters, and shed tears over the poignant tales of Bront. But their love was forbidden, for Seraphina was bound to the library, unable to leave its enchanted confines. Humans were never meant to know of this place, and the consequences of their love were dire. It was said that love between a human and angelic being had the power to alter the very fabric of existence, and this revelation sent tremors through the stories housed within the library. Lucas and Seraphina decided to rewrite a tale together, a story where they could be together, a story where love would conquer all. They chose a dusty, forgotten book, and with every word they wrote, they drew themselves into its pages. In this story, Seraphina would become human, so they could share a life together outside the library's confines. As they neared the final chapter, reality and fiction began to blur. The characters within the library's stories rebelled, as they were never meant to change. The once peaceful library turned chaotic, as characters from different books collided, and the fate of their worlds hung in the balance. In the end, Lucas and Seraphina succeeded in their story, but it came at a heart-wrenching cost. The library's enchantment shattered, and Seraphina turned into a human, free to explore the world outside, while Lucas was bound to the Library of Eternity, destined to watch over the now unraveled stories. They had altered the very essence of the library, and in doing so, they had condemned themselves to an eternal separation. Seraphina ventured into the world with newfound wonder, while Lucas remained, a prisoner of the library, where the characters he once read about now resided. Their love had indeed changed the fate of the characters, but it had sealed their own tragic destinies. Each day, Lucas read about Seraphina's adventures, her happiness, and her sorrow, knowing that they could never be together again. The Library of Eternity held its secrets close, guarding the story of an angelic being and a human who dared to love, their bittersweet tale echoing through its endless corridors. In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled amidst a dense forest that whispered secrets of old, a curious teenager named Alex moved into a charming, weathered house with their family. The house was a quaint relic of another era, its attic a treasure trove of forgotten memories. It was on a crisp autumn day, while Alex was exploring the attic, that they stumbled upon a dusty, leather-bound book hidden among the forgotten treasures. Little did they know, this was no ordinary book. It was an ancient spellbook full of powerful magic, its pages brimming with enchantments of forgotten ages. Excitement coursed through Alex's veins as they gently brushed the dust off the spellbook's cover. Without a second thought, they cracked it open, revealing pages upon pages of cryptic incantations and mystical diagrams. It was a book of secrets, an invitation to a world beyond the ordinary. Unbeknownst to them, as Alex pored over the spells written within the pages, a subtle but palpable shift in the atmosphere occurred. A gust of wind blew through the attic, sending old papers rustling and casting eerie shadows on the walls. The magic had stirred, and strange things began happening all over the neighborhood. The first sign of trouble appeared when a broom, leaning against the attic wall, came to life with a mischievous twinkle in its bristles. It scuttled across the floor, bristles sweeping the air as it tried to sweep Alex out of the attic. Startled but quick-witted, Alex realized that the spells within the book had somehow triggered a chain reaction, bringing chaos to their once peaceful town. It seemed that every spell they unintentionally cast had unforeseen consequences, as if the very fabric of reality itself had been tampered with. Panicked but determined to fix their mistake, Alex embarked on a race against time. They had to decipher the book's secrets and find a way to undo the spells before Halloween night arrived, for it was on that night, when the veil between the realms was thinnest, that the magic would become permanent, sealing the town in an endless carnival of chaos and enchantment. With the help of their best friends, Maya and Ethan, Alex delved deeper into the world of magic. Together, they pored over ancient texts, consulted wise forest creatures, and sought advice from a quirky, retired wizard named Professor Thistledown, who lived on the outskirts of town. The old wizard, though eccentric, became an invaluable guide in their quest to restore order to Willowbrook. The townsfolk grew increasingly bewildered and afraid, retreating into their homes as the world outside grew stranger by the hour. With determination and newfound knowledge, Alex, Maya, and Ethan discovered a clue in the hidden pages of the spellbook. They needed to find 3 magical artifacts scattered across the town in order to unlock the solution. The trio set out on an adventure that took them deep into the heart of the forest, facing dangerous obstacles and overcoming their own fears along the way. Their journey was fraught with peril, from navigating through a labyrinthine maze of thorns to outsmarting a mischievous spirit guarding one of the artifacts. Each step brought them closer to unraveling the mystery and saving their beloved town. As Halloween night approached, tension filled the air. The once peaceful town was now a swirling cauldron of magical mishaps, a place where reality and fantasy intertwined. But Alex, Maya, and Ethan persevered, motivated by their passion for the power of friendship and their unwavering dedication to make things right. Finally, on the eve of Halloween, under a starlit sky that seemed to hold its breath, they found the last artifact hidden deep within an ancient gnarled oak tree. With trembling hands and voices steady with determination, Alex recited the incantation that would reverse the spells and restore harmony to Willowbrook. In a grand display of magic, the town slowly returned to normal. The broom returned to its dormant state, the trees rooted themselves back into the ground, and the animals went back to their usual behavior, their voices fading into the night. The townsfolk rejoiced, their gratitude overflowing for the bravery and quick thinking of the young adventurers who had saved their town from an enchanting disaster. As the dust settled, the ancient spellbook, its pages now empty of magic, closed itself and returned to its hiding place in the attic, guarding its secrets, until it found another worthy soul to unlock its power. Its leather cover gleamed, as if it knew that it had played a vital role in a tale that would be passed down through generations. Alex, Maya, and Ethan, forever changed by their supernatural journey, vowed to keep the magic of Willowbrook alive in their hearts. They became the town's very own protectors against the forces of darkness, always ready to face new adventures and protect their beloved home. And so, in the quiet town of Willowbrook, the legend of the enchanted spellbook and the courage of its young heroes echoed for generations to come. On a chilly Halloween night, a full moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the quiet suburban neighborhood. Sarah, a curious and adventurous 14-year-old girl, had been eagerly anticipating this night for weeks. She'd been invited to a sleepover at her best friend Emily's house, and the excitement had been building to a fever pitch. Sarah's parents dropped her off at Emily's house, a quaint 2-story Victorian home, enveloped in ivy, at the edge of town. They exchanged goodbyes and left her with warm warnings about staying safe and making sure to call if she needed anything. Sarah waved them off, eager to indulge in a night of candy, horror movies, and ghost stories. The evening began with the usual Halloween festivities. Carving pumpkins, snacking on sweets, and trying on costumes. They played classic party games and watched horror movies that made them scream and giggle in delight. But as the night grew darker, a strange atmosphere descended upon the house. The wind outside howled like a restless spirit, and the house creaked as if it had secrets of its own. As the clock neared midnight, Emily suggested they make their sleepover unforgettable by having a séance. She'd read about it online and insisted it would be fun. Sarah, always up for a challenge, reluctantly agreed. They gathered candles, lit them, and sat in a circle, holding hands. Emily chanted eerie words she had found on the internet. The room grew colder, and the candles flickered as if a presence was with them. Nervous giggles filled the air, but as the minutes passed, the atmosphere became more oppressive. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, and Sarah's heart raced. She tried to pull away from the circle, but her hand was inexplicably stuck to Emily's. Panicking, she looked around, her eyes meeting those of her friend, whose face had contorted into an expression of pure terror. Whispers, barely audible, surrounded them, and a ghostly figure appeared in the center of the room. It was a girl, about their age, wearing a tattered dress and a necklace that sparkled ominously. The ghostly girl reached out toward them, and they screamed in unison, their voices echoing through the house. In an instant, the room went dark, and the girls found themselves standing outside the house, shivering in the chilly night. The house itself seemed to have aged centuries in a matter of moments, its once inviting facade now looming with sinister intent. They never returned inside that house again. The sleepover had turned into a night of true horror. The neighborhood was abuzz with rumors of the haunted Victorian house, and Sarah and Emily's friendship was forever marked by the haunting encounter. Years later, long after they had drifted apart, Sarah couldn't help but feel that the spirit they had encountered that Halloween night was trying to convey something important. But she never dared to return to that house to unravel the mystery, for the horror of that fateful sleepover haunted her to this day. It was Halloween night, and Sarah, a young girl with an adventurous spirit, was excited to attend her classmates' sleepover party. Little did she know, this Halloween night would turn out to be the most terrifying and tragic night of her life. As Sarah arrived at her classmate's house, she was immediately struck by the eerie atmosphere. The house was old, with creaky wooden floors and dimly lit hallways. The decorations were macabre, filled with spider webs, skeletons, and eerie jack-o'-lanterns. Sarah's classmates greeted her nervously, their faces pale with fear. The night started innocently enough, with games and laughter. But as midnight approached, the atmosphere in the house became tense. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. She noticed strange shadows moving in the corners of her vision, and heard whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. As the clock struck 12, the group decided to play a game of Truth or Dare. Sarah's turn came, and she chose Dare. Her classmates, knowing her fearlessness, devised a challenge that would put her bravery to the test. They dared her to go down to the creepy basement, alone, and stay there for 5 minutes. Sarah hesitated for a moment, but couldn't resist the thrill of the challenge. Clutching a flashlight, she descended the creaky stairs into the darkness. The moment she reached the bottom, the basement door slammed shut behind her. Panic filled her as she fumbled for the doorknob, desperate to escape. But no matter how hard she tried, the door wouldn't budge. In the darkness, Sarah's heart raced, and her mind filled with terrifying thoughts. She could hear whispers from the shadows, sinister laughter echoing around her. Cold chills ran down her spine as she felt an unseen presence getting closer and closer. Fear overwhelmed her, and tears streamed down her face. Meanwhile, upstairs, Sarah's classmates realized that something had gone terribly wrong. They rushed to the basement, pounding on the door, desperately trying to open it. But their efforts were in vain. Sarah was trapped, and there was no way to reach her. Hours passed, and Sarah's classmates waited anxiously for any sign of her. Finally, as dawn broke, the basement door swung open with an eerie creak. Trembling with fear, they ventured down the stairs, and found no one. The tragic news spread through the town, and the house where the sleepover had taken place became infamous. Rumors circulated that the house was haunted, cursed by an evil spirit that preyed on the innocent. To this day, the memory of that fateful Halloween night haunts Sarah's classmates. The house remains a place of dark whispers and ghostly apparitions, and no one dares to enter, for fear of meeting the same tragic fate as Sarah.